In Tel Aviv, families and friends of the 240 Israeli civilians taken hostage by the U.S.-designated terror group Hamas during the October 7th attack released hundreds of balloons and called for more action to get them freed. They chanted outside, as inside, Secretary of State Antony Blinken held talks with top Israeli officials on Friday. Blinken later told reporters the United States is relentlessly focused on winning the hostages' release, while also ensuring aid to the thousands of Palestinians in Hamas-run Gaza Strip, impacted by Israel's retaliation against the militant group, following the attack that killed 1,400 people.
We believe that each of these efforts would be facilitated by humanitarian pauses, by arrangements on the ground that increase security for civilians and permit the more effective and sustained delivery of humanitarian assistance.
But shortly after their meetings, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu rejected U.S. calls for humanitarian pauses in the shelling of Gaza.
I conveyed that we are proceeding with all our might, and Israel refuses any temporary ceasefire that does not include the return of our kidnapped hostages. Israel will not permit the transfer of fuel to the Gaza Strip and opposes the transfer of funding to Gaza.
As outrage grows at the images of death and destruction coming out of Gaza, many have called on the U.S. to do more to ensure the protection of civilians. More than 9,000 people have been killed in Gaza, according to Palestinian health officials.
We need to do more to protect Palestinian civilians. We've been clear that as Israel conducts its campaign to defeat Hamas, how it does so matters. It matters because it's the right and lawful thing to do. It matters because failure to do so plays into the hands of Hamas and other terror groups. There will be no partners for peace if they're consumed by humanitarian catastrophe and alienated by any perceived indifference to their plight.
Linda Robinson is a senior fellow at the New York-based Council on Foreign Relations.
I think he's got to get some immediate movement because those images and the situation is so devastating. But I think the next thing is really to get Israel to articulate what its game plan is, and ultimately with a goal of a more circumscribed definition of what success of the military operations would mean.
Another goal of Blinken's visit, preventing a widening conflict, says Gilead Sher, who was chief of staff to former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak. He spoke to VOA via Zoom from Israel.
The second objective, I think, is to proceed with the deterrence of Israel's enemies, Iran and Iran proxies, such as the Hezbollah, to not dare to open a second front in northern Israel.
In his first public speech since the war began, Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah said Friday his group had entered the battle with cross-border fighting between Israel and Lebanon. But he stopped short of announcing that the militant group is fully joining Hamas in waging war against Israel, and said he was not aware of the October 7th Hamas attacks in advance. That speech may be on the agenda on Blinken's next step, Jordan. Cindy Sain, VOA News, Washington.